They say anything can be turned into a weapon, all it takes is enough force. In Project Zomboid, blunt weapons are the purest proof of that. In today's episode of the Masterclass, we're gonna cover them in detail, how they deal damage, what are the differences, and how to use them effectively. Because sometimes, the best survival strategy is just a good old-fashioned whack on the head. But before we jump into today's episode, I just wanted to briefly explain why I wasn't uploading content as regularly as before, and the reason is very simple. I just had a lot of work. And while I really enjoy making videos, my ultimate goal is to provide as high quality content as possible, and I just felt that if I make something, it's probably not gonna meet my own standards, and it's definitely not being released, so I just gave myself a little break. Call me a perfectionist, but it's probably why I also had to take like bazillion takes of this particular short clip because I didn't like the way that I spoke to you guys. But nonetheless, I think work-wise I am over the hump, so expect new things on the channel, popping up more regularly, and yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say, so let's get on with the blunt weapons. Blunt weapons are a backbone of Project Zomboid. They are like those Huey helicopters in Vietnam. They're not flashy, but they get the job done. They can be found everywhere in Project Zomboid, and there is a high chance that every single house you loot will have some sort of a blunt weapon inside. It could be a rolling pin, it could be your grandma's frying pan, an old wrench, even a toilet plunger. All of these things categorize as a blunt weapon. And hell, if you're really desperate, you can just go outside and look for a rock or a tree branch. Now these are also blunt weapons. Blunt weapons are split into two categories, a short blunt weapon and a long blunt weapon. Now the short ones are your typical one-handed use weapons like hammers, nightsticks, rocks. You can normally carry them attached to your belt, while the long ones are your typical two-handed weapons carried on your back. The crowbar is the best example, but things like gardening tools, a sledgehammer, yeah, these are long blunt weapons. Dealing damage with blunt weapons is really straightforward. There is no hidden elegance, no finesse, there are no gimmicks. Unlike spears, you cannot charge at the zombie or poke them through a fence. No, you just smack them as hard as you can and hope for the best. But it doesn't mean that they are ineffective. Actually, I would say exactly the opposite. They are very effective, and some of the blunt weapons are the staple weapons of Project Zomboid, like the crowbar. As you can see, every single hit I land does a different amount of damage, so let's talk about how blunt weapons deal damage and what is the formula behind. It's essentially a combination of the base weapon damage, and we'll cover that in a moment, strength, skill, and all the different conditions which impact your character, like your fitness status, your moodles, and these types of things. So even considering that in the example of a crowbar, the base damage is 0.6 to 1.15, which is not a lot, but I am hitting these zombies dealing 20, 40, 70 points of damage, this is all thanks to the multipliers added in the formula for the damage calculation. And what is the base damage of the weapon? Well, this is a value which is hard-coded in the game, and you can actually look up the base damage for every single blunt weapon there is, at least in the vanilla game, on the PZ Wikipedia. By checking the damage section, which I am showing you right now, you can see the spread between the minimum and the maximum base damage. You can sort it just to figure out which weapons deal more. Of course, there are intricacies to take into consideration when comparing weapons, you know, things like swing speed, for example, or a critical chance. But yeah, essentially you get the point. Now that we know all the different factors which directly impact the damage that the blunt weapons deal, let's talk about what kinds of occupations and traits can be picked up by you as a player to make your blunt weapons more effective. And let me just say that the variety of options is much higher than, for example, firearms, because since both strength and the weapon skill and also your fitness level does directly impact your output damage, all of these occupations actually will have a positive impact. And if you think that there are a lot of occupations that you can pick up, wait till you see the traits. And let me just say that when I was scrolling all the available traits in vanilla, there were so many that I figured I'm not going to be listing all of them because it's just going to be a massive waste of time. So I'll just summarize this by saying that any trait that gives you either weapon skill, a strength or fitness bonus, or moodle effects like Brave, for example, to reduce your panic levels, or even traits which give you maintenance, they all essentially make the usage of blunt weapons more effective by your character. Okay guys, so enough theory, let's go out and test the knowledge in practice. As you can see, I have a couple of examples of different blunt weapons. I tried to find things which are, all over the board. So you have a crowbar, a hammer, you even have a freaking guitar, and we're just gonna see how they work, how they perform. We're gonna test them out in lower skill levels. We're also gonna test them out at higher skill levels. You're gonna get a feeling. I'm pretty sure you already have a feeling, but you're gonna visualize the differences in a very, very simple format. Now I wanted to start with the Project Zomboid's Holy Grail, which is the sledgehammer. And guys, this is not an effective weapon at all. I mean, the swing speed is really low, it doesn't deal much damage, at least at lower skill levels, and you instantly get tired. So actually, a claw hammer, which I switched to right now, is probably better pure weapon than a sledgehammer. But then again, guys, nobody can ever find sledgehammers, so all of this was just purely theoretic. And after only a few kills on low skill levels using the sledgehammer and the claw hammer, my character is already tired. They feel pain because swinging that sledgehammer does have a massive strain on your muscles. So all in all, this is not a good idea. You don't want to go in this direction unless you really level up your skills first. And that's what we're going to do now actually. I'm going to bump the skills and we will have a comparison of how deadly you can be. In this example, I used debug mode to increase my skill levels in weapons all the way to levels 5, and I also did increase the strength of the character to level 8. Now it's gonna take you some time to reach these levels, it's not something that you can achieve on day 1, but let's look at the performance with blunt weapons at these skill levels. And strength and skill levels is the essential thing you need to take into consideration if you want to primary your blunt weapons. See, unlike the spears, which I made a video in the previous episode of this mini-series, they are not affected by strength. These weapons rely so heavily on your strength levels that it's absolutely essential for your character to do regular strength exercise because pure physics, more strength, more force, more damage. There are ways, however, to mitigate some of the losses that you can generate because your skill level is low or you haven't had the time to level up strength to a respectable level, and that is by making the right weapon choice. As you know already, the damage dealt by blunt weapons is a calculation that starts with taking a random number from the base damage of a weapon you use. So choosing a weapon that has a lower spread or slightly higher base damage will automatically increase the damage you deal regardless of all the other effects, because your baseline is higher. Now what you're seeing right now is me using various different types of blunt weapons, which I find to like and consider them very effective. Some of them are very easy even to begin the game with, like the baseball bat with nails. Some require skill to be able to craft them, like the bone club or the can reinforced baseball bat, and some are just pure luck. I do have a garden hoe here to show you how effective that is. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if you plan this accordingly and if you approach blunt weapons the way you should approach them and understand the mechanics behind using them, you can be really effective even at low levels. You just need to invest some time into getting your gear set up properly, and it could be said for probably any other mechanic in Project Zomboid, because this game requires us as players to really think, plan, strategize, and not just run into the wild without a plan, because that usually ends in death. And a personal note from my end here, I totally love one-shotting zombies. It just gives such a sense of accomplishment. I don't know, do you have it as well? Let me know in the comments. And last thing before we wrap up today's episode, and that is how to maintain your blunt weapons. You see, back in build 41, when you would right-click on your blunt weapon, a context menu would pop up that would have an option of item repair. Now, in order to repair your weapon, you would require some sort of resources, materials to do so, but it was all done through right-click. Now, that's not the case for build 42, and it might be a bit confusing at the start. In build 42, all of that has been moved into the repair section of the crafting menu, which I am showing you right now. The materials used and the process stays the same, it's just triggered differently. And again, for blunt weapon repair, you need either duct tape, adhesive tape, or glue. These are the resources used to increase the condition of all your blunt weapons. Making repairs on your blunt weapons will give you maintenance skill points, and maintenance will reduce the wear that your weapon takes when using it. Now, if you want to know how maintenance works, I did make a video about it, so make sure to check it out, but with an important note. Also check the comments, because I did get a couple of things incorrect in the video, and the comments add extra context to the entire message. To wrap things up, guys, I really hope I gave you some extra insight into blunt weapons. I hope that by explaining the mechanic of how blunt weapons deal damage, you now understand the entire usage of these weapons better. And I get it, these weapons are not flashy, they're just crude, brutal, but they're extremely effective if you know how to use them and if you prepare your character to use them. So do your exercise, bulk up your characters, and just wreak havoc. Oh, and before we go into the closing messages, if I got something wrong or if I missed some essential piece of information in this video, guys, as always, use the comments, call me out, correct my mistakes, or share extra context. This is highly valuable. And not gonna lie, by you commenting under the video, it does help me get this to a larger audience, so I'm really counting on you here. As for announcements, I'm gonna start with channel memberships, because I did set it up on my channel. Now, this is totally optional, and I just want to emphasize that all the content I am making will always be free. By being a channel member, you can just show some extra support to me and get some cool perks, like early access to videos. So if that's your thing, check it out. It would mean the world to me. And speaking of which, a huge thank you to all the tier 3 members of the channel. Thank you, guys. Quickly plugging my Discord, the link is in the description of the video. If you want to get in touch, if you want to hang out, socialize with other Project Zomboid players, go check it out. There's over 100 of us and the place is buzzing, so it's fun. Thank you for staying till the end of this video. If you're not yet subscribed to the channel and you like what I'm doing, that red button over there is for you to click. Otherwise, any likes and comments are highly appreciated because they help spread the word. But yeah, I guess for today that's everything, and as always, I'm Gertrix. Cheers, guys!